Hi everyone, I'm Dhriti. From professional experience, I'm a program manager in cybersecurity, managing channel sales. Before that, I have spent a decade on the IT side, working with the developers as a business systems analyst as well as businesses. But today, I'm not going to talk about my professional life. I'm going to talk about my personal life, a story of like a journey of embracing where I was, getting enlightened by the amazing resources that I had around me, and then leading to my evolution. Okay. So, um, okay. Sorry, it wasn't working. So raise your hand or just type it in the comment whenever someone asks you, how are you doing? The autopilot mode come in and you just say, fine, great, things are okay. Irrespective of whether you are feeling broken, frustrated, lost, angry, but that's the autopilot response. And I have been thinking about it from like last 5 to 6 years that how much I don't like this question, how are you? And today, as I mentioned earlier, my hope is to plant a seed for a community that feels psychologically safe. Because I did an internal reflection of why can't I say how I'm feeling? Because I don't feel safe in order to express myself. I have a fear of judgment and misunderstood. So that's what I'm going to do today. And for that, I'm going to share my story because I have to take the risk to be vulnerable in order if I'm expecting a change, to make a change in this world. So I'm starting the change from my perspective. Okay. So going back to 2010, my life was as usual. I got married to my best friend. We adopted a super cute puppy, which was our like both of our childhood dream. Moved to Pacific Northwest from the East Coast, got our first apartment together. Things seemed good. Or I should say not good, but okay on a personal front. But on a professional front, there was a lot of struggles. I had dreamt of a extraordinary life. I have always stayed like, in the top tier of my academics, grad school, everywhere. But for some reason, I was really struggling to find my footing on the West Coast. I have left all my professional network on the East Coast. And also during that time, we were still recovering from the recession, 2008 recession. And what had happened is the professional struggles were also showing up in my personal life because I was frustrated, uh, you know. But then there was a turning point. We often think of turning point something positive or great occurrence, but it was slightly different. So in 2011, I had a big perspective shift. I got diagnosed with cyst in my ovaries, and I had to have a outpatient procedure, which was successful. But the same evening, I was rushed into an emergency surgery because of loss of blood and plasma. So what happened is when the doctor was rushing me, I asked him to give me 2 minutes so that I can talk to my husband. The doctor looked into my eyes and told me, we don't have time for it. And at that moment, I realized how critical the situations were. I didn't see my husband. They rushed me into the ER. The surgery was supposed to last 2.5 years, but it lasted 2.5 hours, but it lasted 4 hours. I stayed in the ICU for 4 days. And even then, doctors weren't sure if I'm going to make through. But I did. I'm in front of you. But because of that traumatic experience, both for me as well as my husband, there were some insights that I gained. And that was prioritize what really matters. Things that were important before the surgery, my job, my career, what kind of brands I'm wearing, like where am I going to vacations, all of a sudden didn't matter. What mattered for me was to be able to spend time with my family and, of course, our puppy. Another realization was there is no certainty I'm going to be part of the future tomorrow. So, the opportunities that I have today, let me make the best of it. Let me give my best, even if it's the tiniest task, because tomorrow I might not get a second chance at it. And one thing to realize is that the best that I can offer today and tomorrow, it can look different. It might not be consistent, and that's okay. But in the moment, I'm going to give my best that I'm capable of. And obviously, gratitude, right? Gratitude for my stars, gratitude for my blessing, that there are people around me, you know, whose blessings and prayers were answered, because it was a very traumatic experience for us. And just, I think I missed mentioning a past, like even from my teenage, I always have some or the other issue with my reproductive health. Like you talk about it, like painful periods, I had like vomitings, just not feeling myself, right? And then what happened is because of this trauma, it had, even though it gave me more optimism at things, there was an underlying issue. There was a fear. The fear was so deep that me and my husband, we never thought about becoming parents because I just didn't want to go back into a hospital. Even on regular gynecologist checkup, I'll pass out of fear. It became a part of me. And I thought to myself, like, I don't know from where this belief came in, but it was like, if I go to a hospital, I'm going to die. I'm not going to see my family, my friends again. And then what happened? Until 2019, from 2011 to 2019, it sounds silly, but I had so many procedures that I can't even count them on my finger now. I couldn't even remember, but I worked with a really amazing gynecologist who helped restore my reproductive health. And then in 2019, when we decided that, okay, we want to be parents of a human, there were other challenges. I ran into infertility, because of which I had to go through IVF, which I decided, but my first time when I went into the IVF clinic for my very first appointment, I remember sitting in the reception and crying. Crying because here is my body, a woman's body, which is supposed to do this magical thing. And my body was failing me. There was so much fear in me that I couldn't even go through a regular process, like a pelvic ultrasound without passing out. But I was lucky also. I was lucky that I met with a medical professional who honored my journey, who honored my fear where I was. There was no push. And of course, my amazing husband, like there was no push, there was nothing. They supported me where I was. And once I was ready, they helped me move forward. And the result, I had a baby in 2021. She's Sahana, and on the left-hand side, you can see when she was an embryo in a petri dish. And now she's part of our life. And during all these times, right, during that process of overcoming fear, I met some amazing people. And by that, what I mean is like, these are the people who are part of the traditional as well as non-traditional treatment. For example, I work with through acupuncture. I have never tried that before. I work with hypnotherapists. My doula was was a hypnotherapist and really good in her field. I had an OB who was really, really amazing. So all this really helped me to gain the confidence that I can do. And I had a really healthy pregnancy. And I actually ended up having an unmedicated natural birth at Swedish, which for me was overcoming that fear. And it was like getting empowered. I never felt anything like that in my whole life. And I joke with my mentor and my husband that during that time when I was delivering, I was in labor, I was my best. If I can just replicate that into other parts of my life will be perfect. Okay. So that all happened. What were the insights? The insights were when I was sitting in that reception area, no one else was judging me but me. I was being hard on myself. And we need to stop that. We need to be gracious to ourselves, be encouraging to ourselves as we would to a young child, right? Another is be open, find out resources that honor us. They might not be the traditional resources that you are used to, but you never know what will work out. And again, conquering fear is amazing feeling. I think there is nothing that is more empowering than when you overcome your fear. Because if you are not challenged, sorry, Sanju, you're on not on mute. Sorry. And the reason for that is if you are not challenged, you are not going to change. That was something one of my really favorite yoga instructor told us, who is no longer with us. But I believe in that, challenges come our way because we need to change so that we can stay up through our evolution. So I thought this was a happy ending, right? Everything was perfect. We had an amazing baby, amazing, birth story. But then something else hit. And then it was in 2021, we had to say goodbye to our dog, Enzo, which was really rough. I started having postpartum struggles once I am 3 weeks into the postpartum phase. First 3 months was amazing, but then I started having episodes of emotional meltdown, feeling trauma, having intrusive thoughts, even having episodes of rage. And it was hard. It was hard from my background. I come from a very progressive family with a lot of medical professionals, but still I couldn't understand what was going on. I couldn't find anyone to talk about it. And what happened is, I think the only consistent was my husband. One thing my therapist told me that, which stuck with me is like, if you're living with someone with depression or anxiety, it's actually like living with a cactus. You want to hug them, you want to support them, but it couldn't happen without you getting hurt. So it's really difficult. And one thing to keep in mind is we are still in the COVID times, right? Isolation is still real. A new baby at home, which means we are still not going out. So me and my husband are managing. And there was a reluctance in me in seeking medical help. I tried everything that you can think of. I tried meditation, journaling, talking with therapists, trying holistic, Ayurvedic, like you name it. And the reason for that, because I was resistant of actually getting the medical help. I just couldn't overcome that block. But then I really started having, as I mentioned, like episodes of rage. And I was like, at this point, the risk of the medication versus the benefits, which one I'm going to choose. And I got medical help. And I'll tell you, like last year was the first year after my delivery when I started feeling like myself. Because when I was in that phase, I had given up and I used to feel that no one understands what I'm going through. And, this is going to be my new normal. I just couldn't relate to myself. It was really, really difficult. But then I got on the medication. Again, I worked with wonderful resources who honored me where I was, who gave me the tools to help to manage it. And then I moved forward. And it was, I think this was one of the most difficult part of my life because things were not in my control. Once I would have an episode of rage, I would feel guilty. I would feel ashamed. I would feel, what's going on? Why can't I control myself? Right? And what I did is I started to be selectively vulnerable to people. What I mean is I started telling them I'm struggling. I have these racing thoughts that are going in my mind and I can't slow down. And there were times when the person, like I will tell you, like my parents, they're very supportive, but even they didn't know what to do to help me. They felt very helpless. They couldn't understand it, like my family. They were like, no, be strong, ignore it, take care of yourself. But those things were not working for me. So but when I was being vulnerable, I tapped out into my other friends, you can say, or new moms who were in the similar situation. And that's where I got support. So sometimes we have to be vulnerable in order to see if other people can open up and if we can form a community where we are checking on each other. Second one is stay open to options. By that, I mean, like, if I have a headache, I'm not going to think twice before taking a painkiller, right? Why there is so much stigma around mental health? Why we say no, try other things, you are going to get addicted, blah, blah, blah stuff. Why is that? We need to normalize it. We need to say if someone is suffering mentally, they have the right to seek help. And we should build an environment where they feel okay asking for help. The next one is I learned how to set boundaries, which is so difficult coming from a South Asian background, right? But I had to do that for myself because I have to identify what I needed, who I needed at that time, how much information I needed to share, and then obviously self-care. I do have a slide later about self-care. So just to give you an idea, because I know that right now self-care is another buzzword that marketing uses, but self-care is different. It looks different for different people. For me, it was just taking a hot shower uninterrupted. And it was sitting by myself for 15 minutes. That meant self-care because I had to fill my cup in order to show up for my family. Okay. Now, what are the insights from all this? What do I ask of you, or what do I wish for? I wish for creating a community. Wait, give me a second, sorry. Where we normalize struggle, where we talk openly about parental burnout, caregiving challenges, people coping with loss, because it's not easy. We ask genuinely, how are you doing? And with that, what it means, how's your emotional well-being? No, are you really okay? Do you want to talk about it? Just nudging a little. Obviously, there is a good balance. Asking the question. Accepting others when they say no without any explanation, because we don't know what are the battles that they are fighting. Focus on happiness. Sounds simple, but we are a society. We are a very successful society, but just look around how unhappy we are. We don't measure things in terms of happiness metric. Studies are showing that at least America is an unhappiness slump. The unhappiness have increased from 10% to 28%. So we need to talk about happiness. And as talked in the previous conversations, happiness can be a glimmer. It might not you don't have to feel amazing, but it could be just small things. Someone gave you a compliment, or the sun came out today in Seattle. Those are big things. The next one, don't personalize feelings and fall into that bucket of comparison. What we feel has a lot to do with, our past, how we were treated, what were our experiences. It might have nothing to do with what the person is telling us. So take a pause there. And with comparison, we all know it robs us of the joy when we start comparing. We all are unique and we should honor that. And last one, stop glorifying being a superhuman. Super mom, super dad, super couples, whatever. No, let's normalize being us because we just don't know what's going on in the background. And what it does, it puts unwanted pressure on others. I mean, like, how often does it happen? You see perfect Instagram worthy playrooms for your kids, but my playroom doesn't look like that. But it's good, it's messy, which tells me my kid is enjoying it, and that's okay. So these have been my learning sense that I wanted to share. And as mentioned about the last slide, practicing self-care. It's not what marketing or products tell us that you need to do. It's more about what your hearts tell you what to do, what fills your heart. So that's it. That's my last slide. And thank you. Thank you, Uma, Aparna, and all the amazing other speakers as well as audience for giving me an opportunity to share my story. And thank you for being wonderful listeners. Thank you.